Because in the past, for some strange reason, Bart, the audio goes all wonky and goes nuts, and people can't hear me, and I sound like I'm 4 counties away when I'm trying to do a show, which is traditionally very, very bad when it comes to doing content. So happy Wednesday morning, sir. Welcome to Wall Pass.
Cheers, everyone.
So where's the mug? Where's the see, there you go. I see. I figured the Arsenal mug was going to be around someplace. And
oh yes. All
right. So how confident, sir, are you when it comes to the remainder of the season and the notion that only one previous time has a team with 50 points who is at the top not won the league? The other time was second. How confident, sir, are you about your Gunners getting the title?
Pretty confident. There's still the overwhelming dread that Man City will catch us because they're loaded with talent up and down the field, up and down their bench, and up and down their entire, clubhouse. Mm-hmm. But very confident. Would have felt a little bit more confident had Arsenal been able to sign Weston McKennie. I'm a little disappointed he's choosing a team that is in a relegation battle as opposed to a team that is looking to win multiple trophies this year. But hey, that's his prerogative.
But what he's also getting to do is get a chance to play and be with a coach with whom he is familiar. So he's going to be getting reps in the Premier League at Leeds with a couple of buddies too.
Yeah, or he could come win, so.
Oh, so yeah, we found that out coming out toward the end of hour number 1. Looks like Weston McKennie heading to Leeds, which is rather interesting and intriguing. We have men's national team stuff to talk about. We have women's national team stuff to talk about. We talked about 2G, possibly 3G heading this way with it could be Georgios Giacomakis. We could have a different 3G here, Bart. If things continue to work.
Georgios Giacomakis in Georgia. There we go. That's going to be a tongue twister.
All right. So since how are the plans heading to New Zealand? By the way, are you still plotting and planning? And
yeah, the roadblock I have right now is figuring out PTO because the way that the group stage works, it's going to be a little weird. It's an extended period of time. It goes longer than 2 total, weeks. So we're trying to figure out how to sweet talk my way into a little bit more time off without having to take my computer to New Zealand.
Oh, I firmly anticipate you having to take your computer to New Zealand. That's just
I may have to do that. We'll see.
Well, I figured that, you were going to be taking your computer and your audio setup to New Zealand anyway for the live drops that you were going to be doing.
I do plan on bringing my phone, and I actually am looking at getting a little lav mic that can hook up to your phone, so that would alleviate some of the sound quality issues while down there.
Oh, I firmly anticipate that there would be some live discussion with Bart and the rest of the party. How big a party is it? Is it just you, or is this a gag?
No. It's definitely not just me. We are looking at about 10 of us in the immediate group that are trying to plan stuff together. But even then, within that group, there'll be little smaller factions that go off and do things. So yeah.
Well, because I was firmly anticipating the idea of perhaps a studio audience for you when you were doing your
Maybe we'll see. We'll have to figure out that time change while we're there. So that'll be interesting.
16 hours, is that right?
It's between 12 and 16, depending on where you are on Australia or New Zealand. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, it's either going to be a late night or a later night. So we'll see.
Yeah. We'll see how maybe I'll record and send it to you.
That'll work just as well. But yeah, we got time to plan on that. But with the
too late at night, and it might not be great audio quality for another reason.
Does well. The audio quality itself will be great. The quality of the audio will be good. The audio quality, will be the issue. Yes. So when you looked at the 2 matches down in New Zealand, obviously, the second match for the Ferns, they had a lot more of their first choice personnel coming in after the first match. What are some of your takeaways from the women's national team from those two matches, getting acclimated to life down there in New Zealand?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is that we scored goals in a variety of different ways. It wasn't all just cross the ball into the box. So, that in itself is a good positive thing because this team struggled to score the latter half of last year and over the CONCACAF Women's Championship run as well. I think that we saw a team for 3 halves, 2.5 halves maybe, play at the intensity that you would expect a world champion to play at. The first half against New Zealand was not very good. I think we talked about that. The second half was much better in that first game. You came out the second game with a much more intense focus, a team that was looking to get after the opponent much quicker, not wait for them, not wait on opportunities, but create those opportunities. Obviously, the second half, kind of hard once you're up 5-0 to keep that intensity level in a friendly where it's kind of hot. The next day you're flying home. But overall, I think that second game was a much better example of the team that we want to see. And as you mentioned, New Zealand with a slightly more stringent lineup than what we saw in the first game. But the U.S., I think also it was good to see a rotated squad in that game perform at a very high level.
When you have, and I know that you're looking for combinations, you're looking for depth, you're looking to kind of kick the tires on some ideas. If you're Vlatko Andonovski here, who in your mind, taking into the context of what was going on with the matches in New Zealand, who got gold stars for you from those performances in those two matches?
Well, in my view, which may be very different than Vlatko's, Ashley Sanchez proved that she belongs. I know she's not quite the same player as Lindsey Horan, but as we saw in that second game, we actually found Rose Lavelle being able to do that Lindsey Horan role, be a little bit deeper very well, and that allowed Ashley Sanchez to be very attack-minded, and we saw her do that in the first game as well. So for me personally, Ashley Sanchez showed that she can work in multiple midfield setups with Rose or with Lindsey and make it work. That is a positive. I think also Andy Sullivan showed her value to the team. I'm still not sold that we have the best number 6 in the world right now. But again, as we've talked, it's hard to go from Julie Ertz to down to anyone.
Yes.
But I think that we saw some tactical adjustments that allowed Sullivan to be a little bit more efficient both in attack and defense.
Who then, in your mind, did not get gold stars, did not get the check plus? Who got check minuses?
Taylor Korniak did not impress at that defensive midfield position, which is saying something considering that we were playing a New Zealand team that very rarely went on the attack. That wasn't fantastic. Outside of that, I mean, it's kind of hard to say anyone did poorly, right? You score 9 goals over 2 games, especially in that second game. It was a kind of a complete performance. Korniak's the only one that, to me, did not look up to the task. But again, she wasn't playing in her preferred position. She was playing in that defensive midfield role, and I don't think that's where she will thrive. But I personally don't think she adds a whole lot that we can't get from trying Sam Coffey or bringing in even other midfielders like DeMello, Jalen Howell. Like, there's so many other midfield options that I wish we would have tried other than Korniak, who just hasn't looked like she makes the team better. I don't want to say she doesn't look like she doesn't belong. I don't know if she makes us better. And that was kind of confirmed for me down there the past week.
But then how much of this do we put in the context of Vlatko kicking the tires on ideas, knowing the competition that you're facing and that you've got?
We got 6 months, so I think we're done kicking tires. Like that's kind of where I'm at. Is like I understand that we need to try things, but we have 6 months and only a handful of friendlies. So, in theory, maybe this was him trying something with Korniak. But my rebuttal would be, why are we trying to force Korniak into the starting lineup when we have players who play defensive midfield? Not only in camp, Sam Coffey, but in the pool as well, Jalen Howell, that we could be trying out as well, instead of just forcing Korniak just because she's tall into that position.
Okay. What are the next steps, next markers for the women's team that we need to keep an eye on? When are the next camps and stuff?
Yeah, so She Believes Cup in February against Canada, Japan, Brazil. So 3 very good teams, 3 teams that probably are looking to medal at the World Cup this summer. Canada's coming off, obviously, an Olympic gold. They're going to be looking to continue that streak. I don't know if they're as good as they were in that tournament right now, but that tournament, the She Believes Cup, will be a very important benchmark for what the U.S. will do at the World Cup this summer.
Men's side, a couple of things that I wanted to talk about here. Hey, Anthony Hudson's your interim coach. Beat 2, 3, 4. When it came to the dual nationals that we saw, and getting those dual nationals into the U.S. camp, now you got to get them cup tied, but it looks like there's that first step in folks like Zendejas and Brandon Vasquez, where you're still sitting there and you're working back and forth, and you're recruiting. A always B, B, C recruiting. Always be recruiting, and you're seeing that still with the U.S. men's national team.
Yeah, I think that was good of Hudson to be flexible enough to get Zendejas specifically in. I got to be real honest. I don't think that Vasquez was like a hard get. I know he has dual citizenship. I don't know, I don't know what the likelihood of him actually getting that Mexico call-up is. But I will say that it's important to get them in now so that they can get a taste of the camp and hopefully get them to play so that at least they have that USMNT cap under their belt or literally on their head. Because the next 7 to 10 matches, I think, 7 to 11 matches are all official competitions because you have the Nations League in March. You have hopefully the Nations League in June, and then you have Gold Cup in July. So the likelihood, especially for Zendejas, the likelihood that they accept a call up to those camps and play, probably very unlikely right now. That said, Zendejas may come into this camp, say, wow, I really like it. I want to play for the U.S. I think Vasquez, getting him into this camp, if you get him into the matches either tonight or Saturday, I think that seals the deal for him. I know that you can talk about like, Mexico is recruiting him as well, but if you can get Vasquez to play for you this camp, I think that'll set us up very well to have him continue play for us the rest of this year in official competitions.
Legitimately, what are your expectations tonight in this match against Serbia set for 10 o'clock local time here on the East Coast?
22 players will kick a ball.
Everyone stays healthy. Nobody gets injured. That's what you're.
I don't even have that expectation. That would be a wish, right? But yeah, I think look, this is a weird camp cupcake because of the coaching situation. I think it's even weirder because there's been no real timeline discussed for this coaching situation. It wasn't as if, hey, we're going to let Greg go at the beginning of January. We're going to have an interim in place while we search for a new coach. There's not even a search for a new coach right now. It almost feels like we're waiting to see if Berhalter gets invited back or not, and then we'll go search for a new coach. I know that we're talking to people, but the timelines aren't meshing up well of like, okay, so is the investigation going to, is that going to influence the coaching search? Or are we just looking for a new coach in general? It hasn't been made super clear from the leaders at U.S. Soccer what the actual goal is here. I think that's where this is so weird. It's not like, oh, well, we have an interim while we search for our new head coach. It almost feels like, well, we have an interim until we figure out if this investigation means that Berhalter should be out or something. And as I've said multiple times on here, multiple times in real life, Greg Berhalter does not deserve to come back as the U.S. men's national team head coach for multiple reasons. And one of those is this debacle that has ensued with Gio Reyna. But that is probably, in my opinion, the least of the reasons why he should come back.
And, you're looking at guys who are getting their first looks. I know that a lot of folks here in our footprint are looking at Julian Gressel, and Julian has made a point to sit there and say how thrilled he is about these kinds of opportunities. And, Alan Senora, is another name here that a lot of folks are looking at. I think that out of crisis comes opportunity. And so I think that in this situation, while the crisis, and I'll put that in quotation marks, is on the touchline, the opportunity is locked into ideas for what can happen here with the men's national team. And I think that there's a chance here in an odd camp to see players that we wouldn't have had the chance to see, because you're going into an MLS season, all these other kinds of things, and you're getting some new faces here that are getting some new looks. And it's an interesting vibe in a very, very odd situation.
Well, allow me to throw a wet blanket on the excitement of Atlanta United fans right now. Hi, Nick. It's really cool Julian Gressel gets called up to this camp. Don't get me wrong. That's fantastic. Congratulations to him. It's almost, at this point, kind of a career achievement award for having a great almost decade now in MLS. But the likelihood he is a part of the U.S. men's national team in the future is very low. And I don't mean that any slight to Julian Gressel, but you've got some dude playing in Italy and some dude playing in Germany that are also at that right back position.
I have heard of this.
Yeah, so between Dustin and Scally, I just don't see where Julian Gressel makes any inroads on that. But hey, congratulations, Julian. Glad you're in camp. Sonora, though, is a possibility. He's a little bit younger, so that's a big reason why I think he has a greater chance to be a part of this team in the future. Plays that midfield position that we do need help in that midfield, as we saw at the World Cup. Once you get past Musa, McKinney, Adams, it is maybe Brendan Aronson, and that's if the game is right for him. So, having depth at the midfield will be important as we look forward to not just this year, but 2026. And hopefully we have 3 starters who are going to continue, and then we just find who provides that depth.
Breaking news out of MLS as we continue working. Tommy Scoops, Tom Bogert, Red Bulls and Union SG finally reached a verbal agreement for Belgian striker Dante van Zier. Transfer fee north of $5 million. He'd be a DP. Final steps now. So Red Bulls dropping north of $5 million for Dante van Zier out of Union SG. Nick Alifi, we are here with Bart. We are discussing men's national team, women's national team, and anything else on a Wall Pass Wednesday. What's on your mind?
The Juve stuff is very interesting. They got out there. Yeah, howdy, Bart, by the way.
Hey, Nick. Is Juventus going to be a club after this year?
After this month? Looking like it. It's not looking like it. So for those who missed, there are reports circulating. If we remember a while back, a few months ago, the Guardia di Finanza, essentially the tax man with guns.
Tax man who is undefeated, brother.
That's right. The Guardia di Finanza showed up to Juve headquarters and busted open a few filing cabinets and took some documents. Well, allegedly these documents were the real set of books that Juventus had. Oh no, it's not Juve. Don't worry. It's not Juve down here. Airborne DJ. I know the concern though, but that was the real books. The fake books were what was presented to the world, but we thought previously it was just Ronaldo who had signed for a fake fee and then paid a real fee under the table, when in actuality,
so fast, my friend.
According to the reports, every swinging player on that team had a fake contract that was signed and a real one that was signed behind the scenes. Problem, it's a publicly traded company, which means this is not just little fraud. This is capital F, giant F fraud. And Juve is not just in sporting trouble now. They are in big-time corporate regulation trouble. So as an entity itself, forget team, as a company itself, it may be underwater. Outside of that, for as far as national team stuff goes, good for Julian Gressel to get this. But I agree with Bart that this is kind of like a, hey, good for you. These kind of camps are the ones that you get the people who've been in your system for a while or been on the edge of your system for a while, and you bring them in and they get a run around in the uniform. And, if they show you something, great, they stick. But if they don't, look, you gave them an olive branch, and they can say they represented their country, and everybody has a good time. So I wouldn't look too deeply into this, but good for him. I really hope he makes the most of the situation.
This sets up Julian's children to say that their father played for the U.S. men's national team. That's what it is.
There
Yes.
you go.
The other element in this is the new broadcast partner, Bart. It's HBO Max and Warner Brothers Discovery, and the crew, the first time out of the blocks, they did not hold anything back when it came to the discussion that we've been having about 3GB, and it's been. And it drew a lot of kudos that this crew, Julie Fowley, Kate Walsh, etc., they weren't holding back on what they thought should be happening with the men's national team. It's rare to have an on-air partner, especially out of the blocks, come and sit there and say, okay, well, our on-air talent is saying that the current, or the, I guess, well, he's not really the current, but the guy who was last in charge before Anthony Hudson shouldn't be invited back. I mean, it's rare to have that for a new broadcast partner out of the blocks making these kinds of statements.
Well, this is what I was hoping to get from DeMarcus Beasley and Shannon Box, to people who are not super experienced broadcasters, because we do tend to get, when you've been entrenched in TV or radio land, you stick to generalities and talking points because it's just easier. Luckily, we do have some players, former players, who are not afraid to say how they feel. By the way, 2 former players who had great success both internationally and for their club career. So they have, when Shannon Box says something, I'm going to listen. When DeMarcus Beasley says something, I'm going to listen because it comes with some weight. I think they're right. I think that it's. I feel like it's super. It was made to be controversial, but for them to say, I don't think the dude who was spilling, tea outside of the locker room deserves to come back, I don't feel like that's super controversial, even though Greg thought it was off the record.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thought that he was operating under the whole time. But yet, Nick, to have a broadcast partner come out of the blocks, even though it might be a little hard to find if you don't have the subscription right now, but you can view it in other ways. And full disclosure, I think we subscribed to HBO Max like a long time ago for some other things. You can catch it on Universo as well. But out of the blocks, you've got a broadcast partner, Luke Weilman, your play-by-play voice from time up in Canada for folks that know that voice. He's now part and parcel to it. But, yeah, you got folks not holding back coming out of the blocks, perhaps unlike other places.
Yeah, well, look, I love HBO Max. I'm sorry. I know that there are a lot of people who don't like it. They don't like the interface. And they've kind of made some tweaks to the interface I'm not a big fan of. But the content that HBO Max has is absolutely, especially if you're a movie nerd like I am, they have just their international collection is, I mean, I'll take the Pepsi challenge on that for anybody who wants to step up. I mean, it is really, really good. Mm-hmm. But I think this is something that Warner's trying to figure out what to do with their portfolio of content providers that they have seemed to have grabbed a hold of here. And they're trying to figure out it very quickly how to parse through the movie making end of it. The animation, yes, they have gotten rid of a lot of the fantastic animation that they had. And they're trying to do what Disney did with the purchase of Fox and a lot of the other entities that Bob Iger helped acquire with the Disney brand. And Disney was able to make heads and tails of it very quickly. Warner seems to have a little bit more of a challenge in working it out. But from a sports perspective, I know some of the people at Bleacher Report. I know some of the people with I think it's still referred to as Turner Sports. They are all top tier people. From a production standpoint, I have no doubt they're going to get that stuff sorted and they're going to put out a very good product. And one thing that they will have is from a hosting perspective is they will have freedom to speak their minds. That's something that the Turner Sports people learned early on with inside the NBA when they let Charles be Charles and go nuts, and Shaq be Shaq and Kenny be Kenny, and they had one straight man ringleader in there who could kind of help corral the show.
Yeah.
They had liquid gold on their hands, and so they keep trying to replicate that formula. I think that that's going to be the best thing that could, that could be presented for this national team, especially in the arena that they're currently playing in, which is where it's more of Days of Our Lives and not necessarily a sporting entity. So, I'm completely okay with it. I strongly have issues. I must say strong because I have to be careful with my words here. I strongly have issues with yet another subscription service that somebody's going to have to dial into. I'm sorry, it's becoming a bit absurd, but HBO Max, something I already subscribe to. Now I can I can go from the Harley Quinn show to watching U.S. Men's National Team, and then immediately after that switch to my Orson Welles content. It is, it's. I'm telling you, look, it is. I'm okay with it, and yeah, Ernie Johnson is. I love Ernie Johnson. Coco chimed in and said, and Ernie Johnson does a Herculean effort on inside the NBA. So very brief story time with Nick. I found out that I was getting laid off from Turner, and it was the end of my dream job. And I was, just cratered is not even the word. I was absolutely in a full clinical depression, and I was walking down through some of the sub passageways there, and I pass Ernie Johnson, and immediately Ernie stops me. Never met the man in my life, never had one conversation with him. I've been in the same room, that's about it. And he stopped and just started asking me how I was doing, checking in on me. It's something that he didn't even remotely have to do. One of the kindest, most gentle human beings I think I've ever met in my life. And he's somebody I'd run through a brick wall for. And that's off one interaction. So, so in my opinion, I'm perfectly okay with how Turner Sports and Bleacher Report should theoretically handle this, but I think it's a good thing overall. The U.S. Men's National Team needs to be on a platform where they're going to allow some real conversation to take place. I love ESPN, but ESPN has a tendency to kind of do more Kool-Aid than conversation. So to me, that is
or cut a promo instead of conversation.
Correct.
Also, like other partners, the other former partner that now believes in events instead of doing games live.
Right. Yeah. And Uncle No Pockets, I was like 1 year after that, my man. So Uncle No Pockets said he was laid off by Turner as well. Adult Swim in 2010. That whole period, 2010 to 2012 was just. That was some rough seas for us Turner folk. But they took us up to was it Reynolds Plantation? Is that what it is? Reynolds Plantation? And that's where they broke the news to all of us that at Reynolds Plantation, as we were being served fine food because of cost cutbacks.
Here, enjoy this resort, enjoy the fine food, and by the way, you're gone.
Fattening us up for the kill.
Exactly. Bart, before we get into other topics that I have on my legal pad for the morning, what else is on your mind?
No, I want to echo a little bit what Nick said about just it's another streaming service. And that's where I don't think streaming is bad, because I think that's obviously the way forward. It also, as we have talked about, allows you to provide more content to viewers as opposed to what we were getting with especially ESPN. We're not worried also about NASCAR race day somehow, overlapping with the U.S. women's national team match, because Fox just doesn't feel the need to give you an actual pregame show. So that part is good. The fact that it's another streaming service is not. I do think that U.S. Soccer fancies itself a little bit, because you look at the content it has to offer, it's not as robust as a full league season. I would have preferred them to go with a partner that already does soccer streaming, but I also know that the goal is to segment this as much as possible, because now that means you're getting more people to buy that subscription. For example, had they gone with NBC and Peacock, which I would have loved because I think they do the best soccer coverage in this country, you're not getting more people to subscribe to Peacock because of that. Most, they're already subscribers based on EPL, in theory, right? You're not the marginal gains are not that big. So
Yeah.
I get why they chose HBO Max. I think the Turner side of things, TNT and TBS will be great. We'll get the first taste of that on Saturday. I also think we have to understand, as much as we love soccer and we think that that because we watch it a lot, everyone else watches it a lot. The reality is casual fans aren't even tuning in for a 10 p.m. kick against Serbia on a Wednesday in January. Just not happening.
One of the other things, since you mentioned Apple, Bart, have you picked up? Actually, we can't pick up season pass for another 6 days, right?
Seems to be correct. Yes.
Okay. Yesterday, World Soccer Talk, Christopher Harris came out with news about broadcast crews. And it says, according to several sources who spoke with World Soccer Talk, MLS and Apple have decided that many of the announcers picked will be covering the league on a regional basis. And Harris gives the hypothetical of Jake Ziven, who was the play-by-play voice on the visual side for the Portland Timbers. So Jake could be one of those voices that is doing a lot of Cascadia stuff. He'll be doing Pacific Northwest stuff. So, and the obvious thing here, Nick, is you're cutting down on travel costs instead of flying guys around the country like you see with other networks who are dealing with the oblong version of football. But I think that this it's an interesting wrinkle to the idea. What we're seeing from Apple and Major League Soccer is that you're going to be getting regional guys who are going to be doing games, at least starting out with this 10-year contract.
I think it makes a lot of sense. One of the biggest issues that you have from any content provider in the early days is I think they all try to go too big with limited resources and hope that it just pans out. But a more sustainable model is having regionally based teams that can you're not spending a ton of money on travel. Then they know the storylines from a local perspective. They're not having to do an insane amount of prep for a game in Houston on on one day and then Vancouver the next, right? So that doesn't make any damn sense. So to keep things regional, you are able to do more storytelling because you're more enmeshed within the ecosystem there, and I think that makes a ton of sense. I want to see what some of the other content that they surround game coverage with. I really hope that they provide, again, the stories. Give me the stories, because that's the stuff that will hook the just like what was it? Drive to Survive, the F1 coverage on that got people who weren't even into racing now, because you're meeting these characters, you're being given these stories, and I think that's the one thing that's missing with American soccer is the story aspect. So they do a good job of, I think it's infinitely better than what it used to be. Somebody who was like a day one MLS follower, but it's always been missing that story element. It's been like, here's a name, here's a name, here's a name, here's a name. Okay, great, watch. Well, that's not enough anymore, because there's storylines now that in Europe that make a lot of sense to your big time soccer fans. Wrexham is one that received a lot of heat because somebody said, hey, look, if people in America did storytelling like this, you might have a much more significant buy-in. Who the hell knew who Sunderland was if you were new to the English market until the Sunderland series came out on Netflix? I mean, it's storyline after storyline that gets people to buy in. Half of professional wrestling isn't people doing insane acrobatics off the top rope. It's these crazy storylines that get brought into it. So I want to see what they do from a storytelling perspective. Make your investment there. Force these teams to identify characters. Force these teams to engage with the storytelling aspect, and they're going to do it. Some may do it really well in the beginning. Some may do it very poorly. But those who are doing it poorly over time will naturally learn to become better storytellers.
And you're looking at the regionalization, Ricky. We don't know if and Adrian Healy has announced that. I don't know how this impacts his gig with Austin, but Adrian Healy's announced he's a part. Glenn Davis announced he's not. But we don't know, Ricky, about a guy like Mo Adu, because Mo doesn't live here. Does Mo want to do things closer to his hometown, or because he knows Atlanta, do they fly him from one end of the planet to the other? That's the other part. No word on yet, Coco, who's going to be paired with TT, and we'll see. And Coco's not sure who's a big enough name to pair with him in their current roster. I mean, Bart, that's an interesting thing because you've got to get that number one pair right when it comes to your new contract.
I mean, personally, I think if Adrian Healy is really a part of the Apple MLS package, I think that would make a lot of sense. He has experience calling big games. He has a lot of experience with MLS. He gets a little too over dramatic for me sometimes, but hey, that's maybe what you want. Look at how Fox has turned their college football coverage into that. So maybe that's the secret.
I don't watch Fox's college football coverage. Maybe that's why.
Well, some of us are Big 12 fans, and we're forced to. So, But I think to a great extent, you're right that Nick is completely right in the fact that you need to get regional stories told. The onus will be on the clubs to tell their own story, which, hey, you're going to actually have to do your job. But having one or two national name crews will probably benefit because, as we've seen, Apple TV Plus, the subscription service that Ted Lasso is on, will be showing games as well throughout the week. So having some whoever that headline crew is on your key game of the week will probably be very good. I think this also allows you, if you're MLS, to forecast a little bit ahead like college football does and say, oh yeah, these are the games that matter this week. Let's send our crews there. I'm not sold that they're going to have your assignments laid out for the whole 30-week season. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense from this standpoint. I think we'll see some rotation there because we'll have a regional crew here in Atlanta, but if Atlanta is a top 2 Eastern Conference team and we welcome Philly to town, I don't think we're getting the regional crew. We're most likely getting that national crew. And that allows you a little bit of time to flip like that. And obviously it's not going to be on a whim, but it allows you to give the games the attention they need, because that was kind of the issue with Fox and ESPN selecting these games well in advance, as you think these are going to be good, or they pick it because of a market. Oh, Atlanta and LA. It's like, well, Atlanta United is not a good team, and LA Galaxy haven't been good for a decade. So, is that really are you really getting that great of a soccer game to put in front of people's eyes, or are you just getting too large fan bases? So it allows you to kind of build some games as a bigger game than others on a week-to-week basis, rather than relying on forecasting a schedule for the whole season.
Fatal four-way now on a Wall Pass Wednesday as Jared Smith is in. Bart, when do you turn into a pumpkin? I guess is my
you got 5 minutes.
Okay.
So.
All right. So then let me have the four of you comment on this before we keep rolling forward here. There was a study, and we all know how studies can go. Once again, Kyle Fansler. There was a study that was performed. 20-first group is what they refer to as a sports intelligence agency that works to compare leagues across continents. And the comparison is 538's Global Soccer Rankings. 21st group wanted to analyze the impact Cristiano Ronaldo's arrival would have on Al Nassr in the Saudi Pro League. Their chief intelligence officer said this about the Saudi League and Major League Soccer. Their big gun their chief intelligence officer, ranked the Saudi Pro League on the same level as Major League Soccer when he was talking to Dan Sheldon of The Athletic. They rate MLS as the 29th best league in the world. Quote, so it is not that low, but the difference with the MLS is that the quality is much more concentrated. Chowdhury means that MLS is much more competitive. In other words, the worst team in MLS has a better chance against the best team in Major League Soccer than the worst team in the Saudi Pro League would have against the best team in the Saudi Pro League. One of the biggest factors in 21st Group's rankings is the role of domestic players. Chowdhury even added, quote, the quality of your league fundamentally is dictated by the quality of your local talent. Therefore, from the article, when looking at the group league's overall rankings, incoming world-class talent such as Ronaldo do not do much for a league's overall ranking. So apparently, a think tank says that Major League Soccer is on par with the Saudi Pro League at number 29 on the charts. Bart, number 29 on the charts from our friends at the 21st Group.
I have to dig into their actual methodology a little bit more because I think there are parts of that make a lot of sense. But this is also truly a global game. So you do have to consider the fact that you are getting players from other parts of the world. But I think the one thing that they say is absolutely right, and I think we have all been saying that about MLS for forever, is unlike some of the pretty much every other league in the world, MLS has a true the bell curve is not very tall. Let's put it that way, right? Like it is a very even distribution of talent throughout the league, and that's the point of the roster mechanisms that we have. As much as we hate them, the goal is to create competition and to create competitive balance. Obviously, name another team in the Saudi Pro League.
That's a good question. Al Hilal. Let's go ahead and say Al Hilal.
Sure. Okay, great.
Al Hilal. Since they were the other team that was blended with Al Nassr to take on PSG.
Right. So, I think that Al Nassr makes that league very good, just as Ajax makes the Dutch league very good, right? Or probably a better example is, PSG makes the French league very good.
The Saudi Pro League rated as the 58th highest quality league in the world, according to the strength of its average team, which places it below the Scottish Premiership, Jared, at 49, but above Serie C at 68. Their worst teams are ranked around the 3,000th in the world, which is around the same level as mid-table National League clubs, FC Halifax Town, and one of our favorites, Boreham Wood. I just like saying Boreham Wood. See, that's a Wall Pass Wednesday. Boreham Wood. So that's what you're looking at. On par with League One teams or good League Two sides. So that's what you're staring at.
Yeah, cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Charlie Murphy. And here's another great quote from our buddy Omar Chowdhury. Within any given league and country, it's relatively easy to work out who the good and bad teams are. You have results on the pitch. You see how teams do when they get promoted and relegated and how they do in domestic cups. You can account for the strength of the lineups and that type of thing. It gets tricky when you go cross-continent because the teams don't play each other that much. Although we do have Club World Cup, which gives an indication of relative quality of South America, Asia, and so on. So the World Super League model from our friends at the 21st Group ranks over 4,000 teams globally and uses results from domestic, continental, and intercontinental matches to assess the relative standard of teams and leagues. Nick, number 29.
Yeah. No, I push back against that.
And I think that Airborne DJ in the global football rankings at 15 is more accurate. I would say top 12, but that's just me.
Yeah, you're definitely north of 20. You're definitely north of 20. I'm under no illusions that MLS is keeping up with a league that is spending $644 million in transfers. I'm not that stupid, thanks. But the health of 4 or 5 teams in a league does not mean that your entire league is healthy. You can have 5 teams that are very healthy economically, and your bottom 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 teams could be on the verge of bankruptcy. That's not a healthy league. And so and that's not an even distribution of talent either. So I'm with Bart. I think he nailed it. That I would like to see how they what their calculus is there, but yeah, but you know, I'll say that. And Coco asked, Italy has what, 3 healthy teams? If maybe Milan is healthy economically right now. Atalanta's healthy. Sassuolo may be healthy.
Right.
And after that, your brother, that margin's mighty thin.
Yeah.
But yeah, so having two teams that are really good, like Turkey, for example, Airborne DJ points out, but having 2 teams in Turkey, maybe 3 teams in Italy, 1 team in France. No, I'm sorry. A collection of talent to a singular point does not mean your league is competitive. That's absolutely buffoonish. And I would love to see what their metrics are like on that.
Yep. And so, Bart, since you turned into a pumpkin, time for you to cut your promo. What's going on at SoccerForUS POD and everything else that's going on that you're keeping an eye on? Bart, cut your promo. What's going on?
Sorry.
You're muted, brother.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm taking.
You're trying to multitask. I understand
what's going on this side of my screen. I know.
Go for it.
I will be delivering you a podcast episode probably around lunchtime, so be on the lookout for that. But hopefully that'll drop today then. Talking about the U.S. Women's National Team friendlies and then the roster that has been released for these upcoming friendlies. We don't really talk about the friendlies that the men will play because none of it matters. The players are interesting.
Yes, players are interesting. So as always, Barnum's Prime 19, SoccerForUS POD. As always, great to have you on, Bart, on Wall Pass Wednesdays, where the show goes off the rails and Bart's out the door.